Jake Sullivan stared at his inbox, heart pounding. The email subject read, Gala Guest List Final. His name was there, then gone, replaced by Ryan Kessler next to his wife Lawrence. No explanation, just a digital erasure from the event where he'd always been her plus one. Was this a mistake, or a sign that their marriage was unraveling? Jake Sullivan, 34, had a knack for turning chaos into clarity. A graphic designer in Austin, Texas, he crafted visuals that made brands pop, from craft brewery logos to tech startup websites. His life with Lauren, his wife of 7 years, was the kind of setup you'd see on an Instagram reel. A sunlit loft in East Austin, with exposed brick and a coffee bar they built together. They were the couple who hosted game nights with friends, argued over who made better guacamole, and never missed a weekend hike in Zilker Park. At 32, Lauren was a rising star at Elevate Events, a boutique firm that planned Austin's glitziest parties. Her ambition lit up a room, and Jake loved being her anchor, the guy who kept her grounded when her to-do list spiraled. Their marriage wasn't perfect. Whose is? Lauren's late nights at the office sometimes left Jake eating dinner alone, scrolling through Netflix in their cozy living room. He'd tease her about her workaholic streak, and she'd roll her eyes, promising to slow down after this next big project. Jake, stubborn as a Texas Longhorn, had his own quirks, leaving dishes in the sink, getting lost in design work until 2 a.m. But they always found their way back to each other. Love, Jake figured, was about showing up, even when it wasn't easy. And they showed up every single time. Their Friday night ritual was sacred. Tacos at Torchy's, a local institution with neon signs and a line out the door. They'd claim their corner booth, order a pitcher of margaritas, and talk about everything. Lauren's latest client drama, Jake's dream of launching his own studio, the time they got lost on a road trip and ended up at a dive bar with the best jukebox in Texas. Those nights felt like a reset, a reminder of why they'd fallen for each other back when they were just two broke 20-somethings splitting rent and dreams. Lately, though, something fell off. Lauren's laughs at Torchy's were quieter, her eyes darting to her phone mid-sentence. She'd tap out quick texts, then set the phone face down, saying, just work stuff. Jake noticed she wasn't finishing her queso, a cardinal sin for a Texan. He chalked it up to stress. The Elevate Events annual gala, the Oscars of Austin, as Lauren called it, was weeks away, and she was neck-deep in planning. New clients, bigger budgets, and a demanding boss meant her days started at dawn and ended when most folks were asleep. Jake tried to be the supportive husband. He'd brew her coffee, pack her lunch with a cheesy note, and listen when she vented about her team. But the silences between them were growing, like cracks in a sidewalk you don't notice until you trip. Then there was Ryan Kessler. Lauren mentioned him a few times, a new guy at Elevate, fresh from San Francisco, with a rep for slick pitches and sharper suits. He's got ideas, but he's kind of tech bro, she'd said, laughing. Jake pictured a guy who overused words like disrupt and wore sneakers with blazers. Harmless, he thought. But Ryan's name kept popping up. Ryan nailed the vendor pitch today, Lauren would say, or Ryan thinks we should try a rooftop venue. Jake didn't mind. Lauren was a pro, and teamwork was her thing. Still, he noticed how her phone buzzed more when Ryan's name came up, how she'd smile at her screen in a way that felt private. He pushed the thought aside. Marriage was trust, not paranoia. Besides, they had Torchy's, their loft, their life. What could shake that? But the cracks were there, small but stubborn. Lauren started locking her phone at home, a new habit that pricked at Jake's gut. She'd leave for client drinks and come back smelling faintly of cedarwood, a scent that wasn't his. At Torchy's, she'd check her watch, like she had somewhere else to be. Jake kept showing up, ordering their usual, hoping the ritual would pull them back together. He wasn't ready to admit that rituals only work when both people believe in them. And Lauren's belief, he was starting to fear, was slipping away. The email hit like a sucker punch. Gala guest list final. His name was there, then gone, a strike-through swapping him out for Ryan Kessler next to Lawrence. No call, no text, just a silent erasure from her biggest night. Was this work stress, or was she rewriting their story without him? He'd faced setbacks before. As a graphic designer, he'd had clients trash entire campaigns, only to pivot and nail the next pitch. But this wasn't a client. This was the woman he'd built a life with, the one who called him her rock at every Elevate Events gala for 7 years. They'd sip overpriced wine, laugh at the cheesy live band, and dance under string lights like they were the only two in Austin. Now, his spot was taken by Ryan, the new guy she mentioned too often, her voice too light, her smiles too quick. Sitting in their East Austin loft, he stared at the laptop screen, the AC's hum drowning out everything but the ache in his chest. He tried to make sense of it. The gala was Elevate's Super Bowl, a glitzy night where Austin's elite rubbed elbows with clients who spent six figures on parties. Maybe Lauren needed Ryan there for work. He was her co-lead on the project, a San Francisco transplant with a knack for slick pitches. Scrolling the email again, he hunted for a reason, a note, a typo, anything. Nothing. Just a spreadsheet with his name crossed out, like a mistake she'd caught too late. He shut the laptop, but the image stuck, sharp and stubborn. Friday night at Torchy's felt heavier than usual. In their corner booth, she sat across from him, hair pulled back, phone face down but buzzing like a restless wasp. She barely touched her tacos, nudging avocado slices around her plate. "You good?" he asked, voice steady despite the knot in his gut. "Just swamped," she said, her smile fading fast. "Gala's got me buried." He nodded, sipping his margarita, but her eyes kept flicking to her phone. Each buzz felt like a tiny betrayal, pulling her somewhere he wasn't invited. He noticed the changes before, but brushed them off. Her phone was always with her now, locked even at home, a new habit that pricked at him. She'd come back from client drinks, smelling faintly of cedarwood, a scent that wasn't his. At Torchy's, she'd check her watch, like she had a better place to be. He kept showing up, ordering their usual, hoping the ritual would stitch them back together. But rituals only work when both people believe, and her belief seemed to be slipping. Then came the Slack message. He wasn't snooping. Elevate's team channel was public, part of their transparent culture. Waiting for her to finish a call, he glanced at her open laptop. A notification popped up, Ryan posting in the gala chat. "Oh, you're crushing it. Rooftop venue's a game changer. Drinks to celebrate?" Smiling face with sunglasses, her reply was instant. "Only 'cause you're hyping me, or let's talk logistics tomorrow." The emojis, the nicknames, it wasn't proof of anything, but it wasn't nothing. His stomach twisted. He'd been her hype man for years, the one who stayed up late brainstorming her pitches. Now Ryan was in that role, and he was out. He didn't confront her. Not yet. He needed more than a gut feeling, more than a crossed-out name and flirty banter. But the signs were piling up. She'd stopped leaving notes in his lunch bag, stopped sharing Spotify playlists, stopped asking about his day. At home, she'd laugh too loud on calls when he was around, then lower her voice when he left the room. Her phone stayed face down at dinner, a silent barrier between them. He tried to be the supportive husband, brewing her coffee, packing her lunch, listening to her vent about her boss. But every just work excuse felt like a half-truth, and the gala email wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Lying awake that night, their loft's exposed brick walls closing in, he replayed the last few months. The way she'd tilt her phone away when texting. The late nights she blamed on clients but never detailed. The way Ryan's name went from a casual mention to a regular fixture, then vanished from her stories altogether, like she was hiding something or someone. He wasn't paranoid, but he wasn't blind. The gala was weeks away, and she hadn't mentioned it. No invite, no apology, just silence. He stared at the ceiling, the fan spinning above, one blade wobbling just enough to notice. That's what this felt like. His life still moving, but off balance, a crack he couldn't unsee. He decided to watch, not react. He'd show up at Torchy's, keep their ritual alive, but he'd pay attention. Every buzz of her phone, every dodge question, every forced smile. He'd catalog them, not out of spite, but because he needed to know. Was this just the pressure of her job, or was she pulling away, leaving him to figure out alone? The spreadsheet had crossed out his name, but the real question was whether she'd crossed him out of her heart. Until he knew for sure. He'd keep showing up, because that's what he did. But for the first time, he wondered if showing up was enough. The email still burned in his mind. His name struck through, replaced by Ryan Kessler on the gala guest list. No explanation, just a digital slap that left him questioning everything. But it was the laptop screen, left open in their East Austin loft, that turned doubt into dread. An unsent email draft, no subject addressed to R. The words cut deeper than any spreadsheet. "R, I know it's messy, but things with him have been fading for months. At the gala, it's you and me. That's where you belong." He stood frozen, The loft's exposed brick walls closing in. The words weren't just a betrayal. They were a verdict. She'd already decided he was out, not just from the gala, but from her world. Ryan, the San Francisco hotshot with his slick pitches and sharp pursuits, wasn't just her co-lead. He was her choice. The Cedar would send on her after late client drinks, the phone she now locked even at home, the flirty Slack messages he'd glimpsed. It all clicked into place. This wasn't stress. This was a shift, deliberate and quiet, like a tide pulling away before a storm. He didn't slam the laptop shut or storm upstairs where she was showering. He just stood there, rereading the draft, each word a weight. Fading for months. Had he been blind, or had she been that good at hiding it? He'd been brewing her coffee, packing her lunches, showing up at Torchy's every Friday, believing their ritual could hold them together. But she'd been rewriting their story, casting him as a placeholder while Ryan took center stage. He closed the laptop softly, the click louder than the water running upstairs. The next few days were a blur of routine and suspicion. At their loft, she moved like an actress playing a familiar role, smiling when he walked in, asking about his day with just enough warmth to pass. But her phone was a constant shadow, buzzing with notifications she'd silence with a glance. At Torchy's, she barely touched her margarita, her fingers twitching toward her screen under the table. "Work stuff," she'd say, but her eyes didn't meet his. He nodded, playing along, but every half-answer fueled the fire in his gut. He wasn't just losing her. He was being erased, one small lie at a time. He dug deeper, not out of spite, but survival. Elevate's public Slack channel was still open on their shared laptop, a window into her world he hadn't meant to peer through. Late one night, while she slept, he scrolled through the gala planning thread. Ryan's messages were relentless. "L, you're a genius for locking in that rooftop. Gotta toast this one." Her replies were quick, peppered with winking emojis. "Only 'cause you're pushing me," or "Tomorrow, coffee to nail the budget." The banter wasn't proof of an affair, but it was proof of a bond, one that left him on the outside, looking in at a life he no longer recognized. Then he noticed something else in the Slack thread, budget talk that didn't add up. She'd bragged about fudging numbers to impress clients, but the figures in the channel were off. Vendor costs inflated, expenses padded. It wasn't just sloppy, it looked intentional. He wasn't an accountant, but he'd freelanced for enough startups to spot a red flag. Was she cutting corners to shine at the gala, or was Ryan in on it? He screenshot the thread, not sure what he'd do with it, but it felt like a piece of the puzzle. Her behavior grew bolder. One evening, she came home late, her blouse crisp but her eyes glassy, like she'd been laughing too long. "Team happy hour," she said, hanging her coat. The cedarwood scent hit him again, faint but unmistakable. He asked casually, "How's Ryan fitting in?" She froze, then laughed. A beat too late. "Oh, he's fine. Total try-hard, but useful." Her phone buzzed, and she grabbed it, angling the screen away as she typed. He didn't ask who it was. He didn't need to. The gala was a week away, and she still hadn't mentioned it. No invite, no hint that he'd ever been part of her plans. At their loft, she left her phone charging one night, face up for once. A notification flashed. "R, can't wait for the big night. You're gonna kill it." No reply, but the message sat there, a quiet taunt. He didn't touch her phone. He wasn't that guy. But the sight of it was enough. She wasn't just planning an event. She was planning a future, and he wasn't in it. Lying awake, the ceiling fans wobble a metronome to his thoughts. He felt the crack widen. This wasn't about one email or one gala. It was about the slow, deliberate way she'd stopped choosing him. The notes she no longer left in his lunch bag. The playlists she stopped sharing. The way her laughter, once his favorite sound, now belonged to someone else's jokes. He'd been fighting to hold their marriage together, but she'd already let go, leaving him to clutch at ghosts. He could have confronted her, demanded answers, forced her to admit what was happening. But what would that solve? A shouting match wouldn't undo the draft, the Slack messages, the cedarwood scent. Instead, he chose clarity over chaos. He'd watch, gather proof, and protect himself. The gala was coming, and with it, the truth. If she was betting on Ryan, she'd underestimated him. He wasn't just her husband. He was a man who knew how to rebuild from a blank canvas. And this time, he'd design a life that didn't depend on her. The unsent email draft. Things with him have been fading for months. At the gala, "It's you and me. was a blade that kept cutting. Each night in their East Austin loft, he lay awake, the ceiling fans wobble, ticking like a countdown. She'd cross him out, not just from the gala, but from her life, replacing him with Ryan Kessler's slick smiles and cedarwood cologne. The Slack messages, the locked phone, the way her laughter now belonged to someone else. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a quiet eviction from a marriage he'd fought to save. He could have stormed into her office, demanded answers, or made a scene at Torchy's over their uneaten tacos. But that wasn't him. Chaos wouldn't rebuild what she'd broken. Clarity would. He needed to protect himself, not just emotionally but practically. So he got smart. He called Mia, a college friend turned family lawyer in Austin, known for her no-nonsense advice. Over coffee at Houndstooth, he laid it out: the gala guest list, the email draft, the Slack banter, the budget discrepancies he'd spotted in Elevate's public channel. "Sounds like she's checked out," Mia said, stirring her latte. "You need evidence, not drama. And you need to cover your bases." Evidence wasn't hard to gather. Their shared laptop was a goldmine, left open when she rushed to meetings. He didn't snoop. Everything was in plain sight. He screenshot the gala guest list, the email draft, and a Slack thread where she and Ryan tossed flirty emojis and vague budget numbers. He checked their joint bank account on his phone, noticing small withdrawals: $150 at a downtown bar, $80 at a restaurant she'd never mentioned. Nothing illegal, just pieces of a life she wasn't sharing. Mia's advice was clear: document everything, but don't confront her yet. Texas is no-fault divorce state. Keep it clean, keep it legal. Divorce. The word felt like a brick in his chest. 7 years ago, they'd danced at their Zilker Park wedding, her promising to always choose you, even when it's hard. Now, she'd chosen Ryan, or at least the idea of him. Filing for divorce felt like admitting defeat, but staying in a marriage where he was optional felt worse. Mia drafted the papers, citing irreconcilable differences. "No need to air dirty laundry," she said. "You're not out to ruin her, just to free yourself." He nodded, signing the preliminary forms in her office, the pen heavier than it should have been. But he wasn't done. The budget discrepancies in Elevate's Slack thread nagged at him. She'd bragged about fudging numbers to impress clients, but the vendor invoices in the public channel were inflated: $10,000 for lighting that should have cost half, $5,000 for a consulting fee with no paper trail. It wasn't just sloppy, it smelled like fraud. Ryan's name was all over the thread, pushing for creative accounting to wow the clients. Was she in too deep, or was Ryan steering the ship? Either way, it was wrong. He wasn't out for revenge. He wanted justice. Elevate was a respected firm, and he'd freelanced for enough startups to know how fast a scandal could tank a reputation. He dug into public records on the firm's website, cross-referencing invoices with the Slack numbers. The gaps were glaring. He consulted Mia again, ensuring his next move was above board. "You can tip off the CFO anonymously," she said. "It's not personal, it's ethical. Just don't make it look like a grudge." He drafted an email from a burner account. "Check the gala budget. Vendor invoices don't match Slack estimates. Look at lighting and consulting fees." He attached the public records, hit send, and exhaled. It wasn't about destroying her. It was about holding her accountable. At home, he kept up the act. He brewed her coffee, smiled when she rambled about work, and sat through Torchy's nights where her phone buzzed more than she spoke. But he was different now. The man who'd clung to their ritual was gone, replaced by someone sharper, focused. He joined a running group at Barton Springs, his sneakers pounding the trail as he outran the ache. One morning, a guy in the group, Carlos, cracked a joke about his tortoise pace, and he laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The gala loomed, and she still hadn't mentioned it. No invite, no hint he'd ever been part of her world. One night, she left her phone charging, a notification from Ryan flashing. Gala's gonna be epic. You're the star." He didn't flinch. He was done waiting for her to choose him. The divorce papers were ready, tucked in a folder in his desk. The CFO tip was out there, a ticking clock. He wasn't the guy who'd been crossed out anymore. He was the one writing his own ending. Lying in bed, the fans wobble a faint rhythm. He felt the shift. This wasn't about saving their marriage. It was about saving himself. She'd bet on Ryan, on ambition, on a life that didn't include him. But he was betting on something else: truth, resilience, a future he'd build alone. The gala was days away, and with it, the consequences. He wasn't angry. He was ready. The gala night passed like a storm he didn't need to weather. Instead of chasing her spotlight, he sat at radio coffee and beer, a tucked-away Austin haunt, nursing an iced latte under fairy lights. His phone stayed dark, a deliberate choice. For months, he'd poured himself into saving a marriage built on Torchy's rituals and loft promises, only to find her unsent email draft. Things with him had been fading, had redrawn their story without him. She traded him for Ryan Kessler's ambition, but tonight, he was done running after ghosts. By dawn, his inbox buzzed. Mia, his lawyer friend, texted, "Elevate's a mess. CFO's auditing the gala budget. Lauren sidelined, Ryan's gone." His anonymous tip, backed by public invoices showing inflated vendor costs, $12,000 for decor that cost half, ghost fees for consultants, had landed. The CFO dug in, exposing her padded numbers and Ryan's eager sign-offs. Her carefully curated image as Elevate's star cracked, and Ryan, the slick newcomer, was cut loose, his San Francisco swagger no match for accountability. It wasn't vengeance. It was consequence, clean and undeniable. She called at noon, voice brittle as dry leaves. "Can we talk? I screwed up, but Ryan wasn't. It was work, not what you think." Her words tumbled, grasping for a lifeline. But he'd seen the Slack emojis, smelled the cedarwood cologne, watched her lock her phone like it held state secrets. "You didn't screw up," he said, steady as stone. "You chose a life without me." He mentioned the divorce papers, filed with Mia's precision. "Sign them, Lauren. Let's not drag this out." Her pause was heavy, a confession without words. She signed 3 days later, leaving the folder on the kitchen counter of what was now his loft. No scene, no pleas, just ink on paper, final as a closed book. Elevate quietly settled the budget scandal, but her name lost its shine. She took a job in Houston, a smaller agency, a humbler stage. Ryan vanished to the West Coast, his online presence frozen, a digital ghost. Their downfall wasn't dramatic, just a slow burn of choices catching up. He didn't leave Austin. He found a shotgun-style house near Zilker Park, its front porch creaking under morning coffee mugs. Freelancing surged, branding for taco trucks, websites for local musicians. His work carried a new edge, each design a testament to starting over. He stuck with the Barton Springs running group, their dawn jogs a rhythm he could count on. One weekend, a runner named Lena invited him to a food truck festival. He went, ate too much a load, and grinned through her teasing about his spice tolerance. It wasn't a spark, just a moment where he felt alive, untethered from the past. The ache of betrayal didn't vanish. It crept in, uninvited, when he washed dishes or passed their old Torchy's booth. But it was softer now, like a song you hum without meaning to. Her text trickled in at first. "I'm sorry. Can we just talk?" He left them unanswered, not from anger, but because closure didn't need a reply. Her final voicemail was different, calm, almost resigned. "I don't expect forgiveness. Just know I see what I lost." He didn't hate her. Hate was a weight he'd set down. He deleted the message, letting silence take its place. He cleared out the digital clutter, Spotify playlists, tagged photos, texts saved for nostalgia. Not to bury her, but to stop stumbling over what was. The silence roared at first, like a stage after the curtain falls. Then it settled, gentle as a breeze. He ran longer, read novels on his porch, cooked breakfast tacos for one without explaining why. Freedom wasn't loud. It was a house key that opened a door only he walked through. One evening, crossing Lady Bird Lake, he saw a couple kayaking, her paddle splashing him as they laughed. Once, that would have twisted the knife, conjuring vows and margarita nights. Now, it was just a scene separate from his story. Being alone wasn't a sentence. It was a canvas, blank and his. She'd crossed out his name, but he'd rewritten the man who waited for her approval. Victory wasn't her ruin or Ryan's exit. It was the bungalow's porch, the running group's banter, the designs that poured from his hands. He hadn't burned bridges or spilled secrets. He'd taken a high road, legal divorce, ethical tip, because justice didn't need a spectacle. Mia's words echoed. "You're not breaking her. You're building you." Under an Austin moon, with cicadas humming, he knew she was right. The story didn't linger on a question mark. It closed with a period, not loud but certain, marking the start of a life he'd earned, step by steady step.